Okay, this video is going to be about or discussing uh, why you the case against hatred. So the case against white supremacy, case against the Black Panther movement, uh, the case against the Bloods and the Crips, the Hatfields and the McCoys, our nation versus them, terrorists versus us, and so let's go through it step by step. Uh, because that's where we need to go. We can't look at conclusions. We got to go to the source, the origin. And I'm not talking about, you know, well, your ancestors millennia ago did this to our people, and so we're fighting you in a war to the death. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in our lifetimes. We're all born as babies, and we have no grudge or hatred towards anybody because we don't know any better. You have to be taught hatred. You have to be taught by your peers, by your family, parents, by your government, by your religion, to hate others, to categorize others in a manner in which you justify hatred of whatever kind and type. And that includes bigotry, racism, xenophobia, sexism, etc., etc., etc. And so, in each person's case, it's manifested differently. In my family, my mom's side were the racist, which is kind of weird because on my mom's father's side of the family, going back to my third great grandmother, she was a slave, black slave from Western Africa, as 23andMe DNA indicated to me. I don't have enough light. She was raped and had a baby that resulted in me eventually. And it was a dirty little secret of my third great grandfather as the plantation owner. And the family covered it up and kept it a secret all this time. And and so in my particular case, you can see how it'll apply to you as well, that you can't go back generations because you merge into different family lines. You have to stick to inbreeding in order to preserve the pure master race. So yeah, not Hitler in Nazi Germany. It was a ridiculous claim to think that he could establish a master race of Aryan Germans. Nevertheless, let's use a metaphor example. Let's say that you're living in a house, you move into it, it's newly built, so it's a new built subdivision, and of course it's expected that you're going to have neighbors who are going to buy up the lots and build a house on that lot. And sure enough, one day your neighbor comes and the house is built and they move in. But for whatever reason, you decide you're going to hate them. Maybe they didn't wave at you while they were carrying a big box of items into the house. It doesn't matter. Hatred is not justified if nobody is attacking you. If they ignore you, if they're giving you a stink eye or evil eye, it doesn't matter. They haven't attacked you. You don't know them. They don't know you. So there's no reason to start attacking them over hatred. And so if you were to then, after that decision that you make to hate them, and you start doing things out of your hatred, and you attack them, throwing rocks at their house, or putting little pebbles in their grass so that when they mow it, they mow the little pebbles, or you pour gasoline on their lawn so that it kills the grass and destroys the soil so that they can't grow new grass without replacing the whole dirt as well. You know what I'm talking about. All sorts of things to attack another person. And such that you obviously don't want to get caught by the cops and end up going to jail. And so if you're not in a position of authority in government, you have to conceal what you do. You have to do it in secret. You have to not get caught, and you have to make it so that you can't be linked to what you're doing to your neighbor. Whereas if you were the mayor of the city and you were doing this to your neighbor, you can just simply say, well, I'm the mayor. I'm going to do whatever I want to you. And of course that's not right, but you see where I'm going here. Okay, so what is the type of response and the reaction that you would expect your neighbor to do? Oh, well, you've not established that it's you. Your neighbor could assume that it's somebody else. They have to prove that it's you. So if you got away with it so that they didn't know it was you, and they didn't have security cameras up to catch you in the act, what do you think they're going to do? Well, they're going to obviously first try to get assistance, get help by calling the police, and the police will then have to investigate. But in some cases, there's nothing they can do because there's no forensic evidence of who did it. And so they then, as neighbors who are being victimized, they then have to be on guard. Like I said, they would need to buy a security camera. They would have to buy alarms and all this other stuff. They would have to, in essence, build a defense against an unknown enemy who is actually attacking them in reality, so that they can catch who the enemy is. And that's going to make it more difficult for you as the one who hates them for whatever reason, and your attacks then are hindered. You then have to be covert. You have to disguise yourself, or you have to get robot technology, or whatever, more advanced technologies to attack the other person, so that you don't get caught as being the one. Now, of course, if you're in a position of dominance or bullying, you make it known that you are the aggressor. Bullies in school, it's obvious. They're the ones beating up on the victim that they hate. And so everybody knows who the hater is. And so in that case, the neighbor knows who their enemy is and who to protect against. And when the neighbor does protect themselves against you, knowing it is you, Guess how you then respond as a hater? You say, hey, you're victimizing me. You're taking away my rights. You're trying to hurt me. They twist it, don't they? They don't see themselves as the cause of the problem. They don't see themselves as the cause of the escalation. And as a result, you get the war and the feud. And thus the Hatfields and the McCoys, Bloods versus Crips, Democrats and Republicans, communists versus Nazis, etc., etc. Going back to whatever. It's the same formula. And so that's why hatred as a principle is wrong. You have to employ love as a principle. And you can't demand it from your victim. You have to demand it from yourself. You have to love. So white supremacists, sorry, get rid of your hate. It's not legitimate. There is no threat to your being white and to white culture. You know, if there is a depletion of whites in comparison with other ethnic groups throughout the world, guess whose fault that is? It's your own. You're not breeding in sufficient numbers. But again, why are you wanting to increase your particular ethnicity? Is it because of love for your spouse? Or is it because of your hatred of other ethnicities, wanting to raise up an army who hate? You're not justified in hating. It's illogical. So the whole concept and philosophy of survival of the fittest is wrong. It's not survival of the fittest. It's an incorrect premise. And so, love. That's what we need to utilize. Otherwise, you're going to put yourself at risk and generations upon generations after you at risk. Stop the hate. Peace out.